Well, let's look at another continuum-based model of health behavior, and that is the theory of reasoned action. It was later revised and is now known as the theory of planned behavior. This is a theory that was developed by Eisen and Fishbein, and it was developed not specifically for health-related behaviors, but it's been used to explain a lot of different health-related behaviors, including smoking cessation, exercising, eating fruits and vegetables, using sunscreen, getting vaccinated. So lots of different behaviors. There are some similar variables to the health belief model, but you'll also see some things that are more specific and that weren't included in the health belief model. First of all, we start with behavioral beliefs, and behavioral beliefs are beliefs about a specific behavior. We can go back to the example of getting a flu shot or a flu vaccine. And behavioral beliefs are made up of two things. One is beliefs that the behavior leads to certain outcomes. So beliefs that getting a flu shot will help to prevent the flu or protect one from getting the flu. And sometimes people will believe that, yes, this is something that will prevent me from getting the flu. And other people think, no, it doesn't matter because it doesn't protect against all strains or it doesn't work. And then evaluation of outcomes. So this is somewhat similar to susceptibility and severity. Evaluation of outcomes is, if you get the flu, how bad is that? Is it something that causes a lot of suffering, or is it something that is a fine thing to have? And together, these aspects of behavioral beliefs then influence the attitude toward the behavior. In psychology, attitude is a word that we use in English all the time, but in psychology, it has a more precise meaning, and it means a general evaluation of something as being positive or negative or possibly neutral. So someone could have a very positive attitude toward a flu vaccine and think, this is a good thing because it helps protect me against getting the flu. Getting the flu is a bad thing, and I want to be protected against that. So they have a good attitude toward the behavior. It might be also that what comes into play with the flu vaccine is beliefs about side effects. So that will influence attitude toward the behavior as well. Some people have a more negative attitude about getting vaccinated because of side effects, because it makes their arms sore, or because they have an immune response to it and that makes them feel kind of crappy the next day. But those are things that influence the attitude toward the behavior. How tolerable are those side effects? Some people say they're not tolerable at all. They have a very poor evaluation of those possible outcomes, so they might develop a more negative attitude toward the behavior. Another set of beliefs that is important according to this theory deals with other people, and these are what are known as normative beliefs. So beliefs of important reference. Now, when we talk about normative beliefs, it's important to understand what a norm is. If you've taken a sociology course, you've learned about norms. A norm is a rule. Sometimes it is a written rule, but more commonly, it's an unwritten rule for accepted or expected behavior. It's what is seen by others as being acceptable or expected. And so people have normative beliefs. These are, like we talked about with the health belief model, perceptions. So people might believe that others think it's important to get a flu shot, or people might believe that other people think that it's not important to get a flu shot. A referent is a person or the people that this individual is thinking about. So a referent could be the person's spouse, it could be their friends, it could be other family members, it could be their doctor. So people have beliefs about what other people think and what other people see as acceptable. And then people differ in terms of their motivation to comply with those reference. So just in general, some people want to be more compliant, they want to fit in, they want to follow norms. Other people are norm breakers. They don't care to fit in. They don't care what other people think. But then it also can depend on who the referents are, because sometimes you can have conflicting norms. So maybe, I'll give you an example. we like our son to wear his helmet when he rides a bike. So with us as reference, the beliefs of important reference, he knows that we think it's important for him to wear a helmet. However, he has another group of reference, and those would be his peers. And so if his peers think it's dumb to wear a helmet, you look like an idiot if you wear a helmet, then those are conflicting norms that he's dealing with. And what is his motivation to comply with his parents, who think it's important to wear a helmet, versus his motivation to comply with his peers, who might think that it's stupid to wear a helmet? So it could be a more general motivation overall, somebody motivated to fit in with and follow norms or not. But there could be different norms operating at different times. I'll give you another example of normative beliefs and how those can come into play with health-related behaviors. One norm and rule for accepted or expected behavior is for people to wash their hands after they go to the bathroom. And if you don't wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, then people might think that you're pretty gross and you might be rejected for that. So I had an experience where I went to a job orientation and I was with a bunch of other people who were starting a job, and we were in the basement of the library on campus. This was not at Wartburg, this was somewhere else, but it was a really old building and we were all there. It was an all-day affair. We had to be there early in the morning. And after a couple hours, they gave us a chance to take a break. So people went to the bathroom. So I was standing in line in the bathroom. It was an old building, old bathroom. It had stalls on one wall, and then across on the other wall, there were a line of sinks. It was my turn. I went into a stall, and I realized this stall had been retrofitted to be able to accommodate a wheelchair. And the stall included not just a toilet, but it was expanded and also included a sink. So there was a sink in the bathroom stall. So when I was done, I used that sink in the bathroom stall to wash my hands. Then I stepped out of the bathroom stall and I saw all these women waiting in line to use a stall. And I realized they don't know that there's a sink in this bathroom stall that I just used. So I washed my hands. I could just walk out. That would be acceptable from a hygiene perspective. But these people who are standing here waiting in line would think that I didn't wash my hands. And for me, that norm and my motivation to comply with this norm was so strong that I had to decide, am I going to make an announcement like, hey, just want everybody to know there is a sink in there. I did wash my hands. Or am I going to wash my hands again just so that everybody sees me wash my hands? And I ended up just washing my hands again. That is how strong that norm is for me and my motivation to comply with that norm. So the normative beliefs, these beliefs that you have, and again, these are perceptions. So you might think that other people think something is important, but really they don't think it's important. Or you might believe that, everybody engages in binge drinking, and maybe they don't engage in binge drinking. So your beliefs about what other people think is important, acceptable, expected behavior could be accurate or not. These are, again, perceptions. And these feed into subjective norms. So what do you think other people see as acceptable, and how motivated are you to comply with those people and their norms? So we have attitude toward the behavior, how positively or negatively you feel about the behavior, and then what you think other people think is important and how they feel about the behavior, and if you are motivated to fit in, motivated to comply with those norms. According to this theory, the attitude and the subjective norms then influence intention. Do you plan to engage in the behavior or not? So going back to the vaccine example, let's say that someone believes that getting the vaccine will protect them from getting the flu. They think that getting the flu would be bad And they think that even though they might have some side effects from the vaccine, those side effects aren't so bad. So they have a pretty positive attitude toward the behavior. And that's going to increase the likelihood that they plan to get the vaccine. For their normative beliefs, they might think, oh, my doctor thinks this is important. My friends think this is important. My family thinks this is important, and I want to comply with those individuals. And that influences their overall subjective norms, which is, yeah, generally other people think this is a good idea, and I want to follow what other people think. That will then influence their intention. Now, there are individual differences in the relative importance of the attitude and subjective norms. As I mentioned before, some people just in general don't really care what other people think of them, and other people are very motivated by what other people think. So these can be weighted differently. Someone could have a really positive attitude toward a behavior, but if others think that it's a bad idea, they might decide not to do it. Or even if they don't have a very positive attitude toward the behavior, if they're really strongly affected by the subjective norms, that might have an impact on their intention. And so they might plan to get vaccinated, and then they go ahead and get vaccinated. And what this shows, going back to that general concept of the continuum-based model, is we have these variables. Here the variables are the attitude toward the behavior and the subjective norms, and then the different weights. And these different weights are the different relative importance of attitude and subjective norms. And that influences intention, and then intention, do you plan to do it? Do you want to do it? Will influence behavior. So this is the theory of reasoned action, and it's been used a lot for a lot of different health-related behaviors. Now, one thing is, actually, I'm going to go back here for a second. It's one thing to talk about the intention and the behavior, if you intend to do something and then you do it. But we know that sometimes people have intentions that they don't actually carry out. So sometimes people say, oh, I think it's a good idea to start an exercise program, but they don't start an exercise program. Or they say, I want to get vaccinated, but they don't get vaccinated. Or they say, I want to quit smoking, and I plan to quit smoking, but they don't quit smoking. There's something that goes on between the intention and the behavior. So Eisen and Fishbein noted this, and what they said, this is a quote from one of their publications, barring unforeseen events, a person will usually act in accordance with his or her intention, usually, but it's not a perfect correlation. You can have very good intentions, very clear intentions, and then not carry out the behavior. And that is barring unforeseen events. What are some unforeseen events? Well, if we can go back again to the idea of the vaccination, someone might say, I'm going to plan to get vaccinated, and then I'm going to get vaccinated. What can intervene here? What can prevent intention from actually leading to behavior? You can think of a lot of things. I ran out of time. I forgot. The clinic I go to ran out of vaccine, so I can't get vaccinated. My insurance won't pay for it. There could be all kinds of things. My car broke down. So there are a lot of things that can interfere with intention leading to behavior. Lots of those unforeseen events. So Eisen and Fishbein revised their model, and they included personal control in this model. So they changed the name to the theory of planned behavior, with intention meaning the planned part. And we still have these behavioral beliefs that influence overall attitude toward the behavior. We still have the normative beliefs that influence those overall subjective norms. These influence intention, and one might be a stronger influence than another. But they then added perceived behavioral control as another factor, and it influences both intention and behavior. So it might be that the person says, I know it's important to get vaccinated, but gee, I just don't have time to do it. So perceived behavioral control has already influenced their intention. Or they might say, oh yeah, I'm going to get vaccinated. I'm going to do that next week. And then their car breaks down, and that influences their behavior. So this is the theory of planned behavior. You can see that it has some similarities to the health belief model, but it has some more specific variables, and it brings in very specifically that social factor of normative beliefs. Let's look at another example. And again, this is in a handout that I've posted on Handouts for this week so that you can have this text and take a look at it. This is about the behavior of sleep, and this is from a college student's perspective. Sleep is super important for me. When I don't get enough sleep at night, I get depressed. I know lack of sleep makes me more susceptible to getting sick too. I basically lost a year of my life to depression and mono, and I don't want to go back there again. My parents and sister are always on me about making sure I get enough sleep. They've been worried about me getting enough sleep ever since I left for college. They're right to worry. My roommates and other friends stay up late pretty much every night. They don't pressure me to stay up, but I don't want to miss out. Plus, it's hard to sleep when everyone else is awake and making noise, watching TV, and everything else. I've tried to go to bed early in the past, but I've given up on that. So let's look at this example with respect to the theory of planned behavior. So behavioral beliefs that the behavior leads to certain outcomes. So this person believes that sleep deprivation leads to depression and more susceptibility to getting sick, and that sleep will help prevent those things from happening. And it looks like their evaluation of those outcomes is pretty extreme. They think, I lost a year of my life to depression and mono, and I don't want to go back there again. So they have a pretty negative view of these outcomes of lack of sleep. So those are their behavioral beliefs. Their attitude toward the behavior of sleep is pretty positive. They think sleep is pretty good. Now let's look at the normative beliefs. What do you think, do your analysis of the normative beliefs. You might want to pause here to think about how normative beliefs fit in here. So we've got some conflicting normative beliefs. Family members, which are important reference, believe that it's important for this person to get sleep. And roommates and other friends stay up late pretty much every night. So they believe that they don't have it's acceptable behavior to stay up late. It's acceptable behavior to be sleep deprived. Now it says they don't pressure me to stay up. So it's not expected. This person is not expected by their friends to stay up. But it seems like it's acceptable. It's a thing that people in the friend and roommate group do. So in terms of normative beliefs, the beliefs of important reference, there's some conflicting norms there, and the motivation to comply, because this person is currently with roommates and friends, I think the motivation to comply is probably stronger for the roommates and friends than they're probably more motivated to comply with their roommates and friends than they are motivated to comply with their parents and sister. That would be my guess. So that leads to the overall subjective norms and averaging those things out. It seems like the subjective norms are going to lean more toward sleep deprivation being more acceptable. So even though the person has a really positive attitude towards sleep and beliefs about sleep as being useful for maintaining good health, they also they don't want to miss out on what's going on with their friends. So it might be that the relative importance is that the subjective norms might be more important. And what about intention? So take a moment to think about intention, where that comes in here. In this case, the person has given up. So they don't even really intend to try to get sleep. So it's not like, I'm going to get sleep and then they run into problems. They have pretty low perceived behavioral control. It's hard to sleep when everyone else is awake and making noise, watching TV and everything else. So they have low perceived control, what is known as self-efficacy, which we'll be talking about next week. And that has influenced their intention. They've just given up. They don't even intend to try to get more sleep. And so that's probably going to influence their behavior as well. And they probably won't end up getting sleep. So these are the variables that are associated with the theory of planned behavior. And again, this has been used for lots of different health-related behaviors as well. So next week, we're going to take a look at some different types of theories of health-related behaviors, and we'll also see how cognitive behavioral concepts, social learning concepts, can be applied to health-related behaviors.